I was thinking about how complex machines tend to keep doing what they're designed to do, regardless of the intentions of the current operator, because the actual intentions of the machine were put in by the designer, the only person to really understand the full nature of the machine. This machine could be a mechanical device, but it could also be a religion, a government, or a company, or some kind of other organization. A stapler will tend to keep trying to be a stapler. And if you use it as a hammer, you might end up with staples in your hand, right? And an organization founded to and designed to efficiently manufacture staplers will tend to always have it, do things in a manner that reflects the production of staplers in some way, even when they're making software. A culture will tend to keep coming back to its founding ideals, even if most people don't think about those ideals consciously. In the world, there've been various movements of many movements of various sorts, and movements are a type of machine as well. You have what are more common today, political and social protest movements. You have what might be called the spirit of the age, when settlers struck out across North America to discover the land, or the Industrial Revolution, when it seemed we might invent anything at any time. It just seemed like things were always popping up, new technologies. There's been lots of religious movements, but there's also an issue with a lot of movements, and especially I think in the modern age, on the political side of things, unfortunately, there is a lot problem where, well, movements rely on something as a goal, right? So ones that are meant to last a long time have goals that can't be reached. So you think of like the perfection that religion demands. This is sort of how we think about, very similar to how we think of value hierarchies. You need to worship something that can't be fully reached, understood, claimed, owned, or it's not a suitable subject for worship. That's why God is such a potent focal point, both in value hierarchies as well as movements, because you can't get there. You can't really get there from here. But there's a danger when this sort of unattainable directionality is misused and is not accounted for. So imagine that you have a movement where there is a goal, there is an endpoint really, but you haven't defined it well, so you don't know what it is. We see this in a lot of political movements where a compromise or a trade-off is seen as anathema to the purity of your soul, right? And let's say you have a movement for focused on fighting for more rights for some group because that group is missing some rights that other groups have. Great. That sounds like something worth giving some energy to. And you build up this movement, you build up a machine for this purpose, right? So you have a machine, you have a movement built, and that machine very often does not have a constraint around what achieving that goal actually means. Because typically people are going to be too busy fighting to make any headway to achieve this goal, this equality they're looking for, that when they are successful, they don't really notice or they just keep on going. Um, one often the founders of the movement might not even be alive at that point because these things take a while societal wide. There's people now that are living off of the machine itself, off the movement itself, because they've made themselves a part of that. There's the true believers, the people who've really bought into the vision of this thing and the directionality of it. And the idea that you might have clear goals that will satisfy and end the movement, it doesn't really occur much of the time, right? So what's the outcome of all this? Well, it tends to be overreach. We no longer need equal rights. Now we need more rights because before we had fewer rights. How many more rights and for how long? It's not typically articulated. It's just more. We just need more because that's what we've always been trying to get as we came further toward that stasis that was really should have been the defined endpoint of that particular project. The project shouldn't go on forever, right? This tendency of purely directional movements to become eternal pressures to advantage one group over others can cause there to be a great many disparate movements, all vying in some way for more rights or benefits or power. And who's to adjudicate who gets those rights and power and money and funds and attention? Well, how can they even compromise these different movements and groups? What about those who have no such movement, or it's frowned upon to have a movement or a representative body or whatever it is? Are they just left out in the cold and they don't get anything? So the next time you kind of set off and And you're pushing for something, trying to create an organization, create structure, bureaucracy, whatever it is, take some time to define the endpoint. In business, we use silly acronyms like SMART goals, right? That's specific, it's a defined thing, it's measurable, we can tell when we've achieved it, it's achievable, we can actually do it, it's relevant to something that matters, and it's time bound, although I think that that could also be, functionally bound instead of time bound. So you want to consider what going too far would look like with your particular project so you don't do it, because you don't want to let a good become something destructive to yourself or to those around you or to society at large. And thinking in terms of machines and how machines will continue to do what they were designed to do will hopefully make you a little more careful when you're designing the machine in the first place. Even if, again, if it's a movement, a society, a religion, a organization, a corporation, whatever it is. Anyway, that's all I got. Thanks.